Welcome to Simple Scotch Reviews. Here we have a Bunnahabhain whiskey. I've done this before with some of the other releases from other distilleries. I'm not going to butcher the pronunciation. I'm not going to subject myself to those comments of, oh, you idiot, you don't know how to pronounce it. We're not going down that road. There's a title for a reason. You clicked on it. You knew what whiskey it was about. I don't need to attempt the pronunciation. If you're looking for a video to pronounce it so you can learn it, I'm sure there's one of those out there, but that's not this. It is a single malt Scotch whiskey from the Islay region, Bunnahabhain Distillery, bottled at 46.3% ABV, and it is natural color and not chill filtered. My experience with Bunnahabhain before this whiskey had been Bunnahabhain 12 and 18. I'd had both of those and thoroughly enjoyed them. I loved them. Some of my favorites. I had also had a couple of their peated releases. Again, not going to pronounce those here. The two recent peated releases I had tried, and I enjoyed those as well. Obviously, very different from the 12 and 18. Some similarities being from Bunnahabhain, but I enjoyed them nonetheless. Then I came to this whiskey. I'm just going to say, before we get into it, NAS whiskey, no age statement. I'm not against. I'm not against that at all. I have many NAS whiskeys that I do enjoy quite a lot, but I also have a couple that I don't. So it's a mixed bag, just like age statements are a mixed bag. I've had 12-year-old whiskeys I don't like. I've had older whiskeys even that I don't like. And so age isn't going to be the factor there for me, but so don't think that if I dislike this whiskey that I'm just because of the age and I'm one of those age snobs. I am definitely not that. Let's take a look at this one. So on the nose, I do get the sherry influence that they speak of. So this whiskey, one more note again before I get too deep. Don't want to prolong this longer than I need to, but this is a whiskey. I have every so often one whiskey where I taste it and I taste nothing that anyone else is talking about. Like, for example, I'll have a whiskey that everyone seems to love and I don't like it at all. Or I have one that everyone seems to hate that I kind of dig. Like, sometimes my tastes don't line up with the masses of whiskey enthusiasts, I guess. And obviously not everyone has the same taste, but what starts to concern me is when my tasting notes are nothing like anyone else's. It's kind of like, okay, we're not getting the same thing. It's not like we're getting the same thing and you like it and I don't. We're not getting anywhere near each other. So I don't know if there's some kind of batch variance. I don't know. So let's get into this one. You get the sherry influence, and people talk about the sherry influence with this one. Definitely the brine, that briny coastal Bunnahabhain note. I definitely get that. Probably stronger in this than the other two, as in the 12 and 18 that I made videos of. I definitely get more of that coastal-y influence from this one. But I still do get sherry fruit, hint of baking spice, hint of vanilla. Not as much powerful flavor as I wanted. Like, the flavors aren't as intense as I would like, per se. I do get a very faint hint of plastic. Don't know why, but I do. And that was the first red flag I had about this Bunnahabhain release, because I've never gotten plastic in a Bunnahabhain before. So that was unfortunate. I do get a dark chocolate note as well, and an oak note. Almost a charred note. Yeah, charred note. Dark chocolate. Okay, I know not everyone who has had this whiskey, or who is having this whiskey, has had Bunnahabhain before. If you're starting with Bunnahabhain, I'd suggest you start with the 12-year-old. But for those that have had Bunnahabhain and the previous releases, like the 12 and the 18, imagine the 12 or the 18, which have very similar flavor profiles, just tweaked intensities. Like I think the 18 has more fruit and sweetness, and there's baking spice as well, but the 12 has less of the fruit and sweetness, and some people find that better and more balanced. But imagine those two without as much sherry and baking spice. Like, it's just that briny note to me, that briny coastal influence in this whiskey is definitely much stronger. Based off of what they write on this whiskey from Bunnahabhain, the folks at Bunnahabhain, what they wrote, I think they're going for that. So mission accomplished if that's what you're going for. I do get a hint of that plastic note, but the weird thing is, it's like, yeah, just every time I have this whiskey, it's like the first sip or so, I get that note, but then when I go back to it, let's try again here. It's just very much on the extreme front of the palate. Like right when it enters my mouth, I get it, and then it's gone. And then I don't have that plastic note anymore. And it's a faint note, but it's there, and so you notice it because it's not a pleasant one. I'm looking at my notes here because this is one that I've had a mixed experience with. Just it's missing the parts that I think make the 18 and 12 so good. It doesn't have as much of that sherry influence. It's got the brininess, dark chocolate flavors, little baking spice, a little bit of the sherry influence. It just doesn't have enough of those things to offset that briny note and then that dark chocolate note. I just don't find it as well balanced as the other whiskeys. The finish is longer than the 12-year-old. It is some oak, some baking spice, and then that briny note in it lingers. And the plastic note is minimal. It makes it that it's not in the finish. The plastic note on this whiskey in general is minimal. On the nose, it's there. It's minimal, but it's there. The palate, it's only there on the very front, and then it goes away, and it's not in the finish. But when I nose it, it's always there, a hint of it, and so that might just be a me thing. You might be watching this video screaming that you don't get that, and great for you. I wish I didn't. But that does bring it down a few rungs for me. But to summarize the palate, the sherry, the vanilla, the baking spice are all toned down a bit, especially the sherry and vanilla. And there's that hint of char, and then the briny coastal notes are turned up, which might be what they're going for. And so it's not bad. It's not a bad whiskey. The only problem I have with it, I don't know how the pricing is where you live. I can't get it where I live. I have to get it when I travel. But when I do see Bunnahabhain, it's not that much cheaper than the 12, within $10 of the 12. And I would reach for the 12 every single time over this one. Some people who want that coastal briny and don't want as much sherry would probably love this and prefer it to the 12-year-old. But to me, I like more of that sherry sweetness and fruit and vanilla that I feel the 12 has more of, and it offsets that brininess to create the wonderfully balanced Bunnahabhain that I love. So personally, I don't think I'll be reaching for this one just because it's good. It's just not as good as the 12, and there's no reason to reach for it. If they at some point decided to eliminate the 12 and switch to this as their mass-produced one, I would be disappointed. And I don't know how much I'd stay invested in Bunnahabhain and how often I'd drink Bunnahabhain, but their peated stuff is good as well. Not sure the peat level on this. If it is peated or if it's unpeated and it's just trace amounts, I don't know on this whiskey. Based off my tasting notes, I can estimate what I think, which is that I think it's barely, if at all, peated. But yeah, I think that this is, if that's Bunnahabhain's true character, that coastal briny, this might do a better job of showcasing that than Bunnahabhain's other whiskeys, but definitely prefer the 18 or the 12. I would not recommend it unless you unless you watch this video and think, I want that. I want that Bunnahabhain without the sherry and sweetness. I want just the briny. Like, then definitely try it. You might love it. But if you feel the way I do about the 12 and 18 and feel that balance and those are things you want, you probably won't like it as much. So this is not a don't buy it or a buy it. It's very much if that sounds appealing to you, buy it. If not, don't. I'm not going to say it's a must try, but I'm not saying don't buy it. Overall, I hope this was a bit helpful. I know in the past I had another review where I got a note that others didn't get. Like, I get this plastic note. Some people might, and so the comments will, I'm sure, be littered with people that say, I didn't taste it, I don't know what you're talking about. Someone said that about my lemon note. I think it was in Singleton 18, Singleton of Glendolyn. So, who knows? That's what I get. Everyone gets different things out of a whiskey. Everyone has different tastes. And take the review for what you will and buy it if it sounds appealing, or otherwise don't. But Bunnahabhain is a must-try distillery as a whole. You got to try it. 12 or 18 is what I would recommend to start with. If you like that coastal influence from the 12, I definitely suggest trying this if that's the part you liked best about the 12. But 12 seems like the definite best entry point for this distillery. But either way, check out the channel. Plenty of other reviews. There's always more coming up. I'm going to try to do more not Scotch as well. So some American, some Canadian, some maybe Japanese stuff. Maybe some more Irish whiskey. There's already Irish whiskey on there. And subscribe to get the reviews when they come out. And thanks for watching.